Most men never realize this, but the world prices you before you ever open your mouth. In the first few seconds, in your posture, your pace, your silence, your willingness to explain yourself, long before skill, effort, or morality enters the equation. Most people walk through life like discounted merchandise, unconsciously advertising desperation. They lower standards, they over-explain decisions, they justify choices no one asked them to justify. All under the childish belief that if they are good enough, fair enough, patient enough, someone will eventually recognize their worth and reward it. That belief has destroyed more men financially than laziness ever did. Machiavelli saw this centuries ago. He never spoke about money directly the way modern gurus do, but he understood something far more dangerous. Human beings do not reward merit. They reward perceived power. And power, in every era, begins in the imagination of others. If this makes you uncomfortable, good. Because comfort is expensive only to those who can afford it. For everyone else, it is a trap. Here is the first money rule of the rich, though they never say it out loud. No one pays for what feels abundant. Not attention, not labor, not presence, and certainly not you. The moment you sell yourself cheaply, the market does not feel sorry for you. It adjusts accordingly. Just like a clearance rack item, once you are labeled as easy to obtain, no one asks how well you are made. Look at history. When John D. Rockefeller was still consolidating oil refineries, he did something that baffled his competitors. He refused meetings. He delayed responses. He allowed silence to stretch. Not because he was arrogant, but because he understood leverage. Every unanswered letter increased his perceived importance. Every delayed response raised the psychological price of access. By the time deals were signed, he was no longer negotiating oil. He was negotiating inevitability. Machiavelli warned princes against being too available, too familiar, too generous with their presence. Not because generosity is bad, but because excess destroys authority. When access has no friction, respect evaporates. This applies to money the same way it applies to crowns. Being expensive is not about having money. It is about controlling desire. True luxury is never bought aggressively. It is interpreted quietly. A Hermes bag does not shout. A private members club does not chase. A powerful man does not convince. He allows others to conclude. And this is where most people fail. They think value is proven through exposure, through showing everything, through transparency, through hustle theater. But neuroscience tells a colder truth. The human brain stops releasing dopamine when the reward is predictable. When something is always available, it becomes invisible. We do not desire what we fully understand. We desire what resists us slightly. You have lived this. You already know it. The person who responds instantly becomes background noise. The one who is slightly out of reach becomes memorable. The product that floods the market collapses in price. The one that limits supply becomes status. This is not romance. This is biology. In modern terms, the first money rule of the rich is this. Price is a psychological construct, not an economic one. Jeff Bezos understood this early. Amazon lost money for years, but Bezos never behaved like a desperate man. He spoke slowly, he played long, he refused short-term validation. That posture alone attracted capital before profits ever did. Investors weren't buying earnings. They were buying conviction wrapped in restraint. Machiavelli would have smiled at that. He wrote that men judge more with their eyes than with their hands, because everyone can see appearances, but few can feel reality. If you look cheap, you will be treated cheap. No negotiation can fix that. In today's economy of noise, oversharing, and constant availability, the person who gives themselves away entirely loses all leverage. The person who withholds, who pauses, who withdraws strategically, accumulates power. Not because they are better, but because they are rarer. Scarcity is the oldest currency on earth. Think of luxury stores. No loud greetings. No discounts shouted. Sometimes the salesperson barely looks at you. That cold stillness is not rudeness. It is strategy. It triggers the same thought every time. Maybe this place is not for everyone. And the moment you feel that, you want in. Expensive stops being a number. It becomes an emotion. People work the same way. If you explain too much, you devalue yourself. If you justify your price, you lower it. If you fear losing the opportunity, you already have. Machiavelli understood that neediness is submission, and submission is always underpaid. You might be broke right now. That is irrelevant. What matters is the signal you emit. You can be financially poor and still project scarcity. You can have no institutional power and still create psychological weight. Silence does that. Distance does that. Control does that. Being expensive begins as an internal discipline. It is the decision to stop chasing, to stop begging to be chosen, to stop negotiating from fear. Because money, respect, and opportunity all obey the same invisible law. They move towards certainty, not need. And here is the uncomfortable truth. The world will not correct your self-perception. It will exploit it. If you act common, you will be consumed. If you act rare, you will be studied. That is not arrogance. That is survival. Before we go deeper into how elites weaponize distance and mystery, pause for a moment. Reflect on this rule. Where have you been too available, too fast, too eager to prove? If this lesson resonates, comment "rare" below. One word. Lock it in. And if you want to keep learning the rules that the rich never explain but always follow, subscribe and join a growing community of men who are done being priced by others and ready to define their own value. By now, the illusion should be cracking. Value does not come from effort. It comes from access. Who gets it? When they get it? And how difficult it is to obtain. This is the second money rule of the rich, and it is one of the least spoken yet most consistently applied rules across history. The more controlled your availability, the higher your perceived worth. Machiavelli never advised rulers to be cruel without reason. He advised them to be measured, to give favors sparingly, to avoid constant exposure, because when people can reach you anytime, they stop respecting you. Familiarity does not breed affection. It breeds contempt, and contempt is always underpaid. Observe the truly powerful, not the loud ones pretending to be. They rarely explain what they are doing. They do not narrate their process. They do not clarify their intentions. They allow ambiguity to work on their behalf. Why? Because the human mind fears what it cannot fully decode, and fear, when mixed with curiosity, creates value. This is not theory, it is pattern. Look at Warren Buffett. For decades, he spoke less than everyone else in the room. When markets panicked, he stayed silent. When others rushed to explain, he waited. And when he finally acted, capital followed him like gravity. Investors weren't paying for information, they were paying for restraint, for patience, for the feeling that Buffett moved only when it mattered. Machiavelli understood this centuries earlier. He warned that a prince who explains himself too much weakens his authority. Explanation invites judgment. Judgment invites negotiation. Negotiation collapses power. The wealthy know this instinctively. That is why they do not justify prices. They do not defend decisions. They do not chase understanding. This is the second money rule in action. Distance is branding. Think of any high-status environment. Exclusive clubs, private banks, elite universities. They do not beg. They do not persuade. They wait. The rejection itself becomes the filter, and the filter creates prestige. In contrast, the weak overshare. They flood the market with themselves. They talk too much. They explain too fast. They respond instantly. And then they wonder why they are overlooked, underpaid, or ignored. They mistake visibility for value. But Machiavelli would tell you this: visibility without control is exposure, and exposure without strategy is vulnerability. Distance is not disappearance, it is measured presence. The powerful do not vanish. They simply do not surrender themselves. They choose when to appear. They choose when to speak. They choose when to withdraw. That choice alone signals dominance. Look at modern tech elites. Elon Musk tweets constantly, yet reveals almost nothing meaningful about his inner strategy. He controls narrative through timing, not volume. Meanwhile, executives who over-explain their vision are dissected, doubted, and discounted. Mystery protects leverage. The same applies to you. When you're always available, you become infrastructure. Useful but replaceable. When you restrict access, you become a resource. Scarce. Observed. Respected. This is where many misunderstand humility. They believe humility means being accessible, agreeable, open, and responsive. But misunderstood humility is economic suicide. Machiavelli knew this. He warned that rulers who sought love before fear lost both. In modern terms, those who seek approval before value lose leverage. Being expensive is not arrogance. Arrogance screams insecurity. Being expensive is quiet confidence. It is knowing when silence speaks louder than speech. It is understanding that not every message deserves a reply. Not every invitation deserves acceptance. And not every opportunity deserves your presence. This is why luxury environments feel cold. That emotional chill is intentional. It triggers the ancient part of the brain that asks, "Do I belong here?" And once that question arises, desire ignites. The exact same psychology applies to people. If you answer immediately, you reduce tension. If you delay, you create gravity. If you explain, you flatten perception. If you withhold, you elevate it. Machiavelli described this as the administration of favor. Too much generosity weakens authority. Too much accessibility dissolves respect. The wealthy understand this in their bones. They do not give everything at once. They give fragments, teasers, signals. Consider how private equity firms operate. They do not pitch loudly. They select quietly. They do not pursue capital desperately. They let capital compete for access. That inversion alone multiplies valuation. And here is the paradox most people cannot accept. The less you visibly need money, the more money moves toward you. Detachment is not indifference, it is leverage. Money senses fear the same way animals sense weakness. This is why negotiating from lack is fatal. When you accept less out of fear, you confirm your low price. When you wait, you force the market to adjust. Waiting is not passivity, it is strategy. Machiavelli praised those who mastered uncomfortable silence. Silence destabilizes others. They rush to fill it, they overoffer, they reveal. The one who remains calm gains information and control without effort. This rule applies everywhere. Business, relationships, reputation. The one who speaks less but with intention becomes expensive. The one who explains constantly becomes noise. So ask yourself this: where have you surrendered access too easily? Where have you confused availability with value? Where have you answered out of fear instead of choice? Pause on that. If this part hit, comment "distance" below. One word. Let it anchor. At this point, the pattern should be undeniable. Value is not something the world discovers in you. It is something the world reads from how you behave. And nothing communicates your price more clearly than your limits. This is the third money rule of the rich, and it is the one most people violate daily without realizing it. Your boundaries are your price tag. Machiavelli understood this with brutal clarity. He warned that the ruler who tries to hold on to everything becomes a slave to everything. Power is not built by accumulation, it is built by selection. The ability to renounce, to refuse, to walk away is not weakness. It is the highest signal of control. Most people think saying yes makes them valuable. In reality, it makes them available. And availability is always discounted. Every time you accept what does not serve you out of fear of loss, you teach the market how cheaply you can be bought. Look at the early career of Steve Jobs. When he returned to Apple, the company was drowning in product lines, partnerships, and compromises. Jobs did not add more. He cut, ruthlessly. He eliminated 70% of Apple's offerings. That act of renunciation saved the company and turned it into the most valuable brand on earth. Why? Because focus creates scarcity. Scarcity creates desire. Desire creates value. Machiavelli would have recognized this immediately. He wrote that a prince who distributes favors indiscriminately cheapens himself. When everything is allowed, nothing is respected. When everything is accepted, nothing is valued. This applies to your time, your words, your energy, your emotional availability. If anyone can access you, interrupt you, drain you, or demand explanations from you, then your price is low, no matter how talented you are. Here is the harsh truth. People do not respect generosity without limits. They exploit it. They may praise you publicly, but they discount you privately. This is why the most available person in the room is rarely the most valued. Money. Rule number 3 is not about becoming cold. It is about becoming selective. The wealthy understand that limits are not walls, they are notices. Notices that say, "I am not for everyone." That phrase is never spoken aloud, but it is felt, and what is felt is paid for. Look at high-level consultants. The best ones charge more not because they do more work, but because they refuse most clients. Their no is expensive. Their yes is rare. And because of that, every minute of their time carries weight. Machiavelli taught that respect is born from distance, not affection. This is uncomfortable for modern minds raised on approval-seeking, but the pattern repeats everywhere. The employee who never says no is overworked and underpaid. The friend who is always available is taken for granted. The partner who gives unconditionally is eventually devalued. Renunciation creates fear of loss, and fear of loss is the engine of value. This is why the rich do not rush. They tolerate silence. They endure rejection without reacting. They do not negotiate from hunger. Hunger is the cheapest signal in any market. There is a reason elite negotiators are trained to sit in silence. Silence forces the other side to reveal urgency. Urgency collapses leverage. The one who can endure discomfort controls the exchange. Machiavelli admired this discipline. He warned that the man who seeks to be loved before being feared will not last. Translate that into modern terms and you get this. The one who seeks to be liked before being respected will be exploited. Boundaries cost something. They cost immediate approval. They cost invitations. They cost access. But what they buy is long-term valuation. Think of private banks. They do not chase clients. They reject most applicants. And that rejection itself becomes the signal of exclusivity. People do not desire what welcomes everyone. The same principle applies to your personal brand. If you respond to everything, you dilute yourself. If you explain every decision, you invite judgment. If you justify every boundary, you weaken it. Machiavelli advised rulers to withdraw before becoming predictable. Predictability kills mystery. Mystery sustains power. When people know they cannot fully access you, they remain alert. When access is guaranteed, they relax. And relaxed minds stop valuing. This is where many fail. They confuse humility with transparency. But humility is not exposure. Humility is not needing to prove. The man who respects himself does not announce it. He enforces it quietly. His boundaries do the talking. His absence carries weight. Ask yourself honestly, where have you been afraid to say no? Where have you tolerated disrespect to avoid loss? Every time you did, you lowered your price. Renunciation is not loss, it is investment. The things you walk away from teach the world how to treat you. And here is the paradox Machiavelli would insist you understand. The person who dares to lose something strategically becomes feared, and fear mixed with respect is always expensive. Before we move to the final rule, sit with this. Which boundary do you need to enforce, even if it costs you comfort? If this part struck you, comment "limits" below. Everything you've heard so far converges here. Scarcity, distance, limits. None of them work without the final rule, the one Machiavelli considered the foundation of all power. This is the fourth money rule of the rich. Whoever controls themselves controls the market around them. Power does not begin with money. Money is a consequence. Power begins with posture, with rhythm, with the ability to remain unmoved when others rush, beg, explain, or panic. Machiavelli never admired men who accumulated endlessly. He admired men who selected deliberately, who could renounce without trembling. Because the price of a man is not defined by what he owns, but by what he can lose without losing himself. Look at history's enduring elites. Ancient kings did not walk fast. They did not respond immediately. They did not justify decisions. Slowness was authority. Indifference was dominion. In a world where everyone reacted emotionally, the one who remained composed became sovereign. Size that has not changed. Only the setting has. Today, the person who answers instantly looks desperate. The one who pauses looks important. The one who floods the room with words looks unsure. The one who speaks sparingly is listened to. Control of impulse has become rare, and rarity, by definition, is expensive. This is where most people fail. They believe value is created through visible effort. More work, more explanation, more demonstration, but excess demonstration is disguised insecurity. The wealthy understand this instinctively. They do not convince. They allow perception to crystallize. Consider Bernard Arnault. He rarely gives interviews. He does not explain LVMH's dominance. He does not justify luxury pricing. Silence does the work. When questioned, he smiles and withdraws. That withdrawal alone reinforces the brand's untouchability. Luxury is not defended. It is assumed. Machiavelli would say the same. The prince who defends himself appears weak. The one who remains silent forces others to interpret him upward. Because the human mind fills gaps with projection, and projection almost always inflates value. This is the alchemy of perception. People do not buy realities, they buy symbols. They do not respond to truth. They respond to signals, and signals are emitted through behavior, not words. This is why control is the most valuable currency in the world. Control of time, control of emotion, control of reaction. Control converts ordinary men into figures of authority. No one invests in instability. No one pays a premium for chaos. Even if your inner world is in ruins, you must feign solidity. Not to deceive, but to protect. Machiavelli never spoke of appearances as lies. He spoke of them as armor. The mask is not fraud. It is survival in a world that exploits exposed weakness. If people believe you are expensive, they will treat you with care. If they believe you are cheap, they will use you without guilt. This is not morality. This is mechanics. That is why being expensive is not pride. It is positioning. Respect is not asked for. It is imposed quietly by the calm of someone who does not rush to be understood. The rich do not chase buyers. They let buyers chase access. The moment you stop trying to sell yourself, your price begins to rise. The market smells fear instantly. Urgency devalues everything it touches. Think of negotiations. The one who can walk away controls the table. The one who cannot is already defeated. This is why elite deal makers train themselves to internalize a single thought. I can leave. Even when it's not fully true yet, that belief alters posture, tone, pace. The other side feels it immediately. Machiavelli understood this brutally well. He knew that power belongs to those who can endure waiting. Patience is not passive. It is dominance stretched over time. This is why the most expensive people are not the most talented. They are the most controlled. They do not react to provocation. They do not collapse under rejection. They do not scramble for validation. And because of that, others begin to doubt their influence over them. That doubt is gold. Once uncertainty enters the other person's mind, you control the rhythm. And whoever controls rhythm controls desire. Being expensive means learning when to withdraw at the peak of interest, knowing when to disappear before becoming predictable. Predictability kills mystery. Mystery sustains gravity. Luxury brands release limited collections. Powerful figures appear selectively. Great negotiators speak less but with density. Every word feels costly. Every gesture feels intentional. Cheap people speak on impulse. Expensive people speak on purpose. This is not coldness. This is emotional intelligence weaponized. The final misunderstanding must be destroyed. Being expensive is not arrogance. Arrogance repels because it leaks insecurity. Calculated silence attracts because it suggests confidence. Selection is the signature of value. The cheap is for everyone. The expensive is for the few. Every time you give your energy to someone who does not deserve it, you lower your internal standard. And when your standard drops, the world mirrors it instantly. Yes, this path costs something. It costs approval. It costs comfort. It costs familiarity. Respect costs solitude. Independence costs rejection. Dominion costs patience. Machiavelli would have said it plainly. Power does not seek acceptance. It seeks permanence. The cheap is consumed and replaced. The expensive remains. You do not need money to begin this transformation. You need discipline. You need restraint. You need the courage to tolerate silence without begging to fill it. Every second you endure without seeking validation is a coin deposited into your future value. Being expensive, even if you are not, is not a costume. It is a transition. First you believe it, then you project it, then the world confirms it. Gold shone before it became currency. What made it valuable was not effort, but belief in its rarity. Do the same with yourself. If this series gave you clarity, comment control below. One word, seal it. And if you want to keep learning the unspoken rules of money, power, and perception, subscribe and join a growing community of men who are done begging for value and ready to impose it.